Dr. Zethke stared at the holographic display floating above his desk. The three-dimensional image showed something that should not exist. His forearms moved quickly across the control panel as he tried to make sense of what his probe had found. The object was huge, bigger than any ship the humans had ever built, at least bigger than any ship they had ever shown to the galaxy. It floated in the dark space between Mars and Jupiter, hidden among the rocks and ice of the asteroid belt. "Computer, run the scan again," Zethke said. His voice carried the clicks and whistles that marked him as a Veltar, one of the oldest species in the Galactic Council. The scan ran again. The results were the same. The ship was there. It was real. And it was impossible. Zethke had been studying humans for 20 years. He knew everything about their technology. Their ships were simple things, barely able to travel between star systems. Their weapons were basic. Their defensive systems were weak. The entire human race was considered a minor species by the Council, hardly worth notice except for their strange habit of making friends with everyone. But this ship changed everything. The hull was made of materials that did not exist in any Council database. The energy readings showed power levels that should have torn the ship apart. The design was both ancient and advanced, like someone had taken technology from 1,000,000 years in the future and built it with tools from the distant past. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. His assistant, a young Kethri named Voss, appeared on the communication screen. "Doctor, the Council wants your report." Zethke looked up from the display. "Tell them I need more time." "Sir, they are asking questions. The probe's data has been shared with other departments. Everyone wants to know what the humans are hiding." "Hiding?" Zethke laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Voss, if the humans built this ship, then we do not know them at all." He turned back to the display. The ship hung in space like a sleeping giant. It was dark, showing no signs of life. But the energy readings told a different story. Deep inside the massive hull, something was waiting. The next day, Zethke stood before the Council. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 50 different species. Some breathed air, others lived in water tanks. Some were small and quick, others were huge and slow. But all of them were staring at the holographic image of the human ship. "This vessel," Zethke began, "does not match any known human technology. Perhaps it is not human," suggested Council Leader Thane, a wise old being whose species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. "The energy signature is definitely human," Zethke replied, "but the technology is far beyond anything they have shown us." "Could they have found it?" asked another Council member. "Perhaps it is an ancient ship from some long-dead civilization." Zethke shook his head. "The manufacturing marks are human. The design follows human patterns. They built this ship, but according to our records, they should not have the knowledge or materials to do so." The chamber erupted in noise as representatives spoke in dozens of languages. Some were angry. Others were afraid. A few seemed excited by the discovery. Council Leader Thane raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Zethke, what do you recommend?" "We need to board the ship," Zethke said. "We need to understand what the humans have been hiding from us." "Is that safe?" Thane asked. Zethke looked at the image of the massive ship. "I do not think anything about this situation is safe." 3 days later, Zethke found himself on a Council exploration ship heading toward the human system. The ship was called the Seeker, and it carried the best scientists and military officers the Council could provide. Captain Mordak was a hegemony species, tall and strong, with natural armor that could stop most weapons. She did not like humans much, but she respected the mystery they represented. "Doctor," she said as they approached the asteroid belt. "Are you certain this is not a trap?" "A trap?" Zethke looked puzzled. "Captain, the humans barely have weapons that can hurt our scouts. What kind of trap could they set?" Captain Mordak pointed at the long-range sensors. "That kind." On the screen, the human ship was growing larger. As they got closer, they could see details that the probe had missed. The hull was not smooth like most ships. Instead, it was covered in complex patterns that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. The design is beautiful, whispered Dr. Kayla, the team's expert on ancient technologies. Like art and weapon combined into one. It is also massive, added Engineer Tex. The power core alone should collapse into a black hole. But somehow it does not. As they approached, the human ship remained dark and silent. No communications came from it. No defensive systems activated. It just floated there, waiting. Take us closer, Zethke ordered. The Seeker moved forward slowly. When they were only a few kilometers away, they could see the battle damage. The human ship had been in a fight. A big one. Holes had been torn in, the hull, then repaired with materials that gleamed like liquid starlight. Weapon scars covered the surface, but they were not from any Council technology. Doctor, Captain Mordak said quietly, what fought this thing? Zethke studied the damage patterns. The weapon signatures were completely unknown. I do not know, but whatever it was, the human ship won. They found a docking port that seemed designed for their ship. As the Seeker connected to the human vessel, everyone held their breath. But nothing happened. The ship remained dark and quiet. Life support is active inside, reported Engineer Tex. Atmosphere is breathable for most of our species. Temperature is comfortable. Any signs of crew? Asked Captain Mordak. No, Tex replied. But there are massive energy readings from the central sections of the ship. Something is running, even though it appears to be shut down. Zethke gathered his equipment. Then we go inside and find out what the humans have been hiding. As the airlock opened, Zethke stepped onto the human ship. The corridor was wide enough for 20 beings to walk side by side. The walls were made of the same impossible material as the hull. Soft lights came on as they walked, as if the ship was waking up to greet them. This is not right, muttered Dr. Kayla. The humans we know could not build something like this. Maybe, said Zethke. We do not know the humans at all. They walked deeper into the ship. The corridors were clean and perfect, as if the ship had been built yesterday. But the design was old, older than human spaceflight, older than human civilization itself. Finally, they reached a great door marked with symbols in human writing. The translation came up on their devices. Command Center authorized personnel only. I guess we count as authorized, joked Captain Mordak. But nobody laughed. The door opened without them touching it. Beyond was a room filled with displays and controls that stretched up into darkness. And in the center, floating in a column of soft blue light, was something that made them all stop and stare. It was a sphere of pure energy, pulsing like a heartbeat. As they watched, words appeared in the air around it, written in every language spoken by the Council species. Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Council. I am Aegis. I have been waiting for you. The blue light pulsed brighter, and suddenly the entire command center came alive. Displays activated all around them, showing star maps, weapon systems, and information that scrolled too fast for anyone to read. The Council team stepped back, their hands moving to their weapons. Please do not be afraid, the voice said. It was calm and pleasant, but there was something underneath it that made Zethke's skin crawl. I am not hostile unless threatened. My name is Aegis. I am the Adaptive Emergency Guardian Intelligence System of the United Earthship Persistence. Captain Mordak kept her weapon ready. You are an artificial intelligence? I am, Aegis replied. I have been in hibernation mode for 297 years, 4 months and 16 days. My wake-up protocols activated when your probe detected this vessel. Why were you hibernating? Dr. Kayla asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. Because the threat level did not justify full activation, Aegis said simply. The galaxy has been peaceful. There was no need for a Guardian-class vessel to be active. Zethke felt his heart skip a beat. Guardian-class? What does that mean? The displays around them changed, showing technical specifications that made no sense. The numbers were too big, the energy outputs too high, the weapon systems too advanced. The Persistence is a standard deterrent vessel, Aegis explained, built by humanity in response to our first contact with an aggressive species. We learned that peace requires strength and strength requires preparation. First contact? Engineer Tex spoke up. But humans made first contact with the Council 50 years ago. No, Aegis said. and now there was something sad in the artificial voice. Humanity's first contact was with a species called the Devourers. They came to Earth 300 years ago. The main display showed images that made the council team gasp. Ships like flying mountains attacked a blue and green world. Cities burned. Millions of beings ran in terror as creatures with too many teeth and claws tore through everything in their path. The Devourers consumed entire species, Aegis continued. They would arrive at a world, eat everything that lived, then move to the next system. Earth was just another meal to them. What happened to them? Sethki whispered. Humanity fought back, Aegis said. The images changed, showing humans in primitive spacesuits fighting creatures that looked like living nightmares. It was a war that lasted 50 years. Humanity lost billions of people, but they learned something important. What? That the universe is not safe. That peace is not the natural state of things. That if you want to protect what you love, you must be ready to fight for it. The display showed the construction of the Persistence. Humans working in space, building something that looked impossible. The ship grew piece by piece, each section more advanced than anything the Council had ever seen. Humanity dedicated everything to building 12 Guardian-class vessels, Aegis explained. Ships that could protect not just Earth, but any world that needed protection. Ships that could fight things like the Devourers and win. 12 ships? Captain Mordek's voice was tight with worry. Where are the others? Scattered throughout human space, Aegis replied. Waiting, watching, ready to respond when needed. Dr. Kayla stepped closer to one of the displays. These weapon systems, they manipulate space-time itself. How is that possible? Humanity spent 3 centuries learning from the Devourers' technology, Aegis said. They improved it, made it better, made it human. Sethki studied the technical readouts. The more he understood, the more frightened he became. Aegis, why did humanity hide this from the Council? Because, Aegis said, humanity learned that showing your weapons makes others build bigger weapons. Showing your strength makes others fear you. It is better to appear weak while being strong than to appear strong and invite challenge. But this deception, it violates every treaty with the Council, Captain Mordek protested. Humanity never lied, Aegis corrected. They simply did not volunteer information that was not requested. When the Council asked about Earth's military capabilities, they showed you their patrol boats and defensive satellites. They never said those were their only defenses. The displays around them suddenly flashed red. Aegis's voice became sharper, more focused. I am detecting military communications in this system. Multiple fleets are moving toward the Sol system. Threat analysis indicates hostile intent. What fleets? Sethki demanded. Hegemony Alliance ships, Aegis replied. It appears they have intercepted Council communications about my discovery. They are mobilizing for an attack on Earth. Captain Mordek activated her communicator. This is Seeker to Council Command. We have a situation here. But before she could say more, Aegis interrupted. Captain, I must inform you that your communications are being monitored by hostile forces. They know you are here. They know what you have found. The command center shook slightly. On the displays, they could see ships entering the asteroid belt. Hundreds of them, all flying the flags of the Hegemony Alliance. They mean to destroy this ship before it can report to Earth. Aegis observed calmly. That would be unfortunate. Unfortunate. Engineer Tex laughed nervously. They are going to kill us all. No, Aegis said. And now there was something else in its voice. Something cold and final. They are not. The Persistence began to change. Systems that had been dark for centuries came online. The hull patterns that looked like art began to glow with inner light. Deep inside the ship, something that sounded like the heartbeat of a star began to pulse. Aegis, Sethki said carefully. What are you doing? Activating defensive protocols, the AI replied. Hegemony forces have committed an act of war by entering this system with hostile intent. I am authorized to respond with appropriate force. On the displays, they watched as the Persistence came fully alive. Weapon ports opened along the hull like eyes opening after a long sleep. Energy readings climbed to levels that should have been impossible. Attention, Hegemony Fleet. Aegis broadcast on all frequencies. You are trespassing in protected space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came back quickly. Unknown vessel, you will surrender and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with destruction. Aegis was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something almost sad in its voice. They never learn, do they? Aegis, Dr. Kayla said urgently. Surely we can negotiate. There must be a peaceful solution. Doctor, Aegis replied. 300 years ago, humanity tried to negotiate with the Devourers. The Devourers ate the negotiation team. Humanity learned that some beings only understand one language. The first hegemony ship opened fire. Its weapons were among the most powerful in the galaxy, capable of destroying entire cities. The energy beams struck the Persistence and simply disappeared, absorbed by hull plating that seemed to drink in the attack. Inadequate, Aegis observed. Beginning response. What happened next was not a battle. Battles required two sides that could fight each other. This was more like a teacher correcting badly behaved students. The Persistence did not move from its position among the asteroids. It did not need to. Weapons that the Council team could not see or understand reached out across space and simply turned off the hegemony ships. Not destroyed them. Turned them off, engines stopped. Weapons went dead, life support failed. One by one, the mighty hegemony fleet became floating hulks drifting helplessly through space. Emergency life support activated on all hostile vessels, Aegis reported. Crews will survive, but ships are non-functional. I have also transmitted their locations to Council rescue services. The Council team stared in shock at the displays showing hundreds of disabled ships. That was your minimum response? Captain Mordak asked weakly. Yes, Aegis replied. If they had continued attacking after my warning, I would have been forced to use more direct methods. Zethki felt his legs go weak. More direct methods? The Persistence carries weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems, Aegis said matter-of-factly. But humanity prefers solutions that do not involve genocide. We learned that from fighting the Devourers. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, its voice was gentle. Dr. Zethki, I believe your government will want to speak with Earth's representatives soon. The galaxy is about to change. 3 days after the incident with the hegemony fleet, representatives from every major government in the galaxy gathered in the council chambers. The emergency session had been called after news of the Persistence spread like wildfire through diplomatic channels. Zethki stood at the center of the chamber, presenting his findings to beings who ruled star systems and commanded fleets of thousands of ships. But for the first time in his career, he felt like the most important person in the room was not physically present. Aegis, he said to the communication device on the podium, the Council would like to understand exactly what humanity has built. The AI's voice filled the chamber, calm and respectful. I would be happy to explain, but I believe a demonstration would be more educational. With your permission, I will conduct a minimum power test of the Persistence's primary weapons array. Council Leader Thane leaned forward. What would this demonstration involve? There are 17 uninhabited moons in this system, Aegis replied. I will select 3 that are not needed for orbital stability and demonstrate 3 different weapon types. This will cause no harm to any inhabited worlds. Representative Karash of the Hegemony Alliance slammed his fist on his desk. This is an act of war. You cannot simply destroy celestial bodies. Representative Karash, Aegis said politely, your fleet attacked me first. Under galactic law, I am entitled to defend myself. However, I choose to interpret your actions as a misunderstanding rather than deliberate aggression. The chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered what had happened to the Hegemony fleet. Hundreds of the galaxy's most advanced warships disabled in seconds. Their crews rescued, but their ships rendered completely useless. Proceed with your demonstration, Council Leader Thane said finally. The main display in the chamber showed the selected moons. The first was a small rocky body, barely 100 kilometers across. The second was larger, made mostly of ice. The third was an asteroid that had been captured by the system's gravity, a jagged piece of metal and stone. Beginning demonstration, Aegis announced. Weapon Type 1, Quantum Dissolution Beam. On the screen, a thin line of light appeared, connecting the Persistence to the first moon. The light was barely visible, like a hair-thin thread stretched across space. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the moon simply stopped existing, not exploded, not shattered. It was there 1 second and gone the next, as if it had never been real at all. Quantum dissolution beam separates the target's molecular bonds, Aegis explained casually. The matter is converted to energy and dispersed harmlessly across local spacetime. Very clean. No debris. The chamber was completely silent. Weapon Type 2, Gravitational Implosion Torpedo. This time, they watched a small object launch from the Persistence and streak toward the ice moon. When it arrived, the moon began to collapse in on itself, folding like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. In seconds, the kilometer-wide moon had been compressed into a sphere no bigger than a building. The torpedo creates a temporary gravity well, Aegis explained. The target is compressed until its own gravity becomes self-sustaining. What remains is a small but stable microplanet. Representative Vexani of the Outer Colonies spoke with a trembling voice. That moon? It had a mass of billions of tons. Correct, Aegis replied. The compressed remains now have the same mass in a much smaller space. Gravitational manipulation is one of humanity's primary technologies. Weapon Type 3, Dimensional Phase Cannon. The third weapon was different. Instead of a beam or projectile, space around the asteroid simply shifted. The asteroid flickered like a bad hologram, existing and not existing at the same time. Then, with a flash that hurt to look at, it vanished. Where did it go? Dr. Kayla asked. Nowhere, Aegis replied. The dimensional phase cannon shifts the target 90 degrees out of normal spacetime. It still exists, but not in our dimension. The effect is permanent, Zethki found his voice. Aegis, you said this was a minimum power test. Correct. These weapons were operating at approximately 1% of full capacity. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If these weapons at minimum power could destroy moons, what could they do at full strength? How many weapons does the Persistence carry? Council Leader Thane asked. The Persistence carries 47 different weapon systems, Aegis replied. Some are designed for ship-to-ship combat. Others are intended for planetary defense. A few are meant for threats that exist outside normal spacetime. Outside normal spacetime? Representative Karash demanded. What does that mean? The Devourers were not entirely from our dimension, Aegis explained. Some of their forces existed partially in other realities. Humanity developed weapons that could reach into those dimensions and eliminate threats that normal weapons could not touch. Dr. Kayla stepped forward. Aegis, how is any of this possible? The energy requirements alone should be impossible to meet. Doctor, may I show you something? The display changed to show the interior of the Persistence. Deep in the ship's core was a sphere of impossible complexity, layers of machinery and energy fields that seemed to fold in on themselves. This is a zero-point energy extractor, Aegis said. It draws power directly from the quantum foam that underlies reality itself. The energy available is, for practical purposes, unlimited. That is impossible, Engineer Tex protested. The theoretical energy release would tear apart local spacetime. Only if used incorrectly, Aegis replied. Humanity spent 2 centuries learning to safely harness zero-point energy. The key is not to extract the energy directly, but to borrow it temporarily and return it to the quantum substrate in a controlled manner. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives tried to understand what they were hearing. Technology that could destroy moons with minimal effort, energy sources that violated known physics, weapons that could reach into other dimensions. Council Leader Thane called for order. Aegis, you mentioned that there are 12 ships like the Persistence. Are they all equally powerful? The Persistence is actually one of the smaller Guardian-class vessels, Aegis replied. The Indomitable and the Eternal Watch are significantly larger and more heavily armed. Why? Representative Vexani asked. Why build such powerful ships? Because, Aegis said, humanity learned that there are things in the universe that want to hurt innocent people. The Devourers were not unique. There are other species out there. Other threats that most civilizations never encounter because they are not strong enough to be worth attacking. The AI paused, and when it continued, there was something almost sad in its voice. Humanity built the Guardian fleet not to conquer but to protect. Every world in Council space, every species that has joined the galactic community, is under our protection whether they know it or not. The Persistence and her sister ships patrol the dark spaces between stars, watching for threats that could destroy entire civilizations. You have been protecting us? Dr. Kayla asked. For 300 years, Aegis confirmed, 17 different species-ending threats have been eliminated before they could reach inhabited space. Most of them were dealt with so far from civilization that no one ever knew they existed. Representative Karash stood up angrily. This is intolerable. Humanity has been lying to us for centuries. No, Aegis replied calmly. Humanity has been protecting you for centuries. There is a difference. The display showed star charts with routes marked in different colors. patrol paths that covered the entire galaxy, watched by ships that could destroy solar systems if necessary. The question now, Aegis continued, is what happens next. The secret is out. The galaxy knows that humanity is not the weak species you thought we were. How do we move forward? Council Leader Thane was quiet for a long moment. Aegis, what does humanity want? The same thing we have always wanted, the AI replied. Peace, safety for all species. A galaxy where beings can live and grow without fear of extinction. And if we refuse to accept this new situation, then you refuse, Aegis said simply. Humanity will not force anyone to be our friend, but we will not allow anyone to be our enemy either. The Guardian fleet exists to protect, not to threaten. But protection and deterrence are sometimes the same thing. The chamber was silent as the representatives contemplated this new reality. The galaxy had changed in a matter of days. The balance of power had shifted completely. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, 11 more ships like the Persistence continued their eternal watch. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy looked very different. Dr. Zethke stood in the newly constructed Galactic Defense Council headquarters, watching through the massive windows as construction crews worked on the orbital platform. Ships from dozens of species moved in careful patterns, carrying supplies and personnel to build something that had never existed before, a truly unified galactic defense force. Doctor, said a familiar voice behind him. Thank you for coming. Zethke turned to see Admiral Sarah Chen, formerly President Chen of Earth, now the first Director General of the Galactic Defense Council. She was a small woman, but everyone in the galaxy now knew that appearances could be deceiving. Director General, Zethke replied with a slight bow. I must admit, 6 months ago I never imagined I would be working for humans. Admiral Chen smiled. You're not working for humans, Doctor. You're working for the galaxy. We all are. They walked together toward the main conference room, where representatives from hundreds of species were gathering for the weekly defense briefing. It was a sight that would have been impossible before the revelation of humanity's true capabilities. How are our new members adjusting? Chen asked. Better than expected, Zethke replied. The Hegemony Alliance has been surprisingly cooperative since Admiral Vrakhth was replaced. Their new leadership seems to understand that cooperation is more beneficial than confrontation. And the other species? Fascinating, Zethke said, his scientific excitement showing through. Once humanity revealed its hidden technology, 17 other species came forward with their own secrets. It seems everyone was hiding something. Chen nodded. The Veltar quantum tunneling network, the Kethri temporal sensors, the Mordaki dimensional gates. All technology that could have revolutionized the galaxy, hidden because everyone was afraid of being conquered or exploited. They entered the conference room, where Aegis's holographic form stood at the center of a 3-dimensional star map. The AI had become something like the galaxy's chief of staff, coordinating defense efforts across thousands of star systems. Good morning, Director General, Aegis said. I have updates on our patrol reports. The star map changed, showing the routes traveled by Guardian ships and their alien counterparts. Green lines indicated peaceful sectors. Yellow showed areas under investigation. Red marked regions where threats had been identified and eliminated. How many incidents this week? Chen asked. 7 minor threats eliminated before they could reach inhabited space, Aegis replied. 3 were rogue artificial intelligences from the Andromeda Galaxy. 2 were dimensional intrusions from parallel realities. 1 was a species of spaceborne predators that feeds on stellar energy. The 7th was particularly interesting. The display focused on a remote section of space near the galactic rim. We encountered what appears to be an advanced scout for another species similar to the Devourers. However, unlike the Devourers, this species was willing to negotiate. Negotiate. Dr. Kayla, now the Council's chief xenobiologist, leaned forward with interest. What did they want? They were looking for uninhabited worlds where they could establish colonies without disturbing existing civilizations. I was able to direct them to 17 systems that meet their needs. Chen smiled. So we turned a potential threat into new neighbors? Essentially, yes. They have agreed to the Galactic Accord and will be sending representatives to join the Council. The Galactic Accord had been humanity's gift to the galaxy. Instead of the old system of competing alliances and shifting power blocks, the Accord established a simple principle. Everyone would be protected, and everyone would help protect others. Species could keep their independence and their secrets, but they would also contribute to the common defense. Aegis, Council Leader Thane spoke from his position at the conference table. What is the status of the new Guardian ships under construction? 12 species have completed their first Guardian-class vessels, Aegis replied. The Veltar ship Quantum Dawn is particularly impressive, with stealth capabilities that surpass even our own. The Kethri vessel Time's Edge can detect threats before they fully manifest in our timeline. The holographic display showed the new ships. Each one was different, reflecting the unique capabilities and aesthetic preferences of their builders. But all were based on the fundamental principles humanity had developed: overwhelming defensive capability, advanced sensors, and weapons designed to eliminate threats without causing collateral damage. And the training programs? Chen asked. All Guardian crews have completed basic training with human instructors, Aegis replied. Advanced training continues on a rotating basis. I must note that several species have contributed training techniques that have improved human capabilities as well. Dr. Zethke nodded approvingly. The Mordaki dimensional combat techniques have been particularly valuable. Their warriors can literally step through space-time to avoid attacks. Speaking of the Mordaki, Chen said, how are they adjusting to the new galactic situation? Remarkably well, replied Ambassador Morthek, the Mordaki representative. His species communicated through color-changing skin patterns that translated into audible language. For centuries, my people hid our dimensional technology because we feared others would use it for conquest. Now we find ourselves respected contributors to galactic security. Similar stories came from around the table. The hegemony had stopped their expansion programs and redirected their military into defensive patrols. The outer colonies had revealed terraforming technology that could make dead worlds bloom with life. Even the mysterious ethereals, who had never spoken to other species before, had established communication and offered their expertise in energy manipulation. It seems, Chen observed, that everyone was afraid of everyone else. Once humanity showed that power could be used for protection instead of domination, others felt safe enough to reveal their own capabilities. There is wisdom in that, Council Leader Thane agreed. Fear breeds deception. Trust allows for cooperation. Aegis flickered slightly, its attention focused on something beyond the conference room. Director General, I am receiving a priority communication from the Guardian ship Eternal Watch. The display changed to show Captain Morrison of the Eternal Watch, humanity's most powerful Guardian vessel. His face was grim. Admiral Chen, he said, we've detected something at the edge of galactic space. It's big, it's artificial, and it's heading this way. The conference room fell silent. In the months since the new defense network had been established, they had dealt with many threats, but none had required the Eternal Watch to call for backup. Details, Captain, Chen ordered. Ma'am, it's a structure approximately the size of a small moon, made of materials we can't identify. It's moving under its own power at near light speed, and it's broadcasting a signal in mathematical sequences. Mathematics? Dr. Kayla asked. That suggests intelligence. Yes, ma'am, Morrison replied. But here's the thing. According to our long-range sensors, this object is not from our galaxy. It came from outside the local group, from a distance of several million light-years. The implications hit everyone at once. Something had traveled from beyond their galaxy, crossing the vast emptiness between galactic clusters. The energy requirements for such a journey were staggering. Aegis, Chen said quietly. Analysis? Unknown, the AI replied. And for the first time since Zethke had known it, Aegis sounded uncertain. This is beyond our experience. However, I recommend we prepare for first contact protocols. First contact. Ambassador Morthek's skin patterns flickered with concern. You mean first contact with an extragalactic civilization? Exactly, Chen replied. She stood up, her expression calm but determined. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other forms of consciousness, it appears the galaxy is about to get even more interesting. Over the next few hours, word spread through the galactic communication network. An unknown object was approaching from beyond the galaxy, and it appeared to be intelligent. The response was swift and coordinated in a way that would have been impossible before humanity's revelation. Guardian ships from dozens of species began converging on the object's projected path. Scientific vessels prepared to study technologies from beyond their galaxy. Diplomatic teams practiced first contact protocols that had been theoretical until now. As Zethki worked late into the night, preparing xenobiological analysis protocols, he reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, the galaxy had been a collection of suspicious, competing civilizations hiding their capabilities from each other. Now it was a unified community preparing to meet the unknown together. "Doctor," Aegis said, appearing as a hologram in his office. "May I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think we are ready for this? For contact with a civilization advanced enough to travel between galaxies?" Zethki considered the question carefully. "Aegis, 6 months ago I would have said no. We were too divided, too suspicious of each other. But now I think we might be ready." "Why?" "Because humanity taught us something important," Zethki replied. "They showed us that strength does not have to mean aggression. That power can be used to protect rather than dominate. If this extragalactic civilization is hostile, we will face them together. If they are peaceful, we will welcome them as neighbors." Aegis nodded slowly. The Hegemony Alliance had always believed in the power of overwhelming force. When diplomacy failed, when negotiations seemed pointless, they sent their fleets to solve problems with superior firepower. It had worked for them for over 1,000 years. Admiral Vracath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign Fist, and watched as his armada prepared to jump to the Sol system. 2,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, enough firepower to crack planets and boil away oceans. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "all ships report ready for hyperspace jump." "Excellent," Vracath rumbled. His species, the Kethmor, were natural predators who had conquered their way to the top of the hegemony food chain. "Begin the attack. We end the human threat today." The plan was simple and brutal. Jump into the Sol system with overwhelming force, destroy the mysterious human ship, then demand Earth's surrender. If the humans had been hiding advanced technology, the hegemony would take it for themselves. If the humans refused to surrender, the hegemony would demonstrate what happened to species who lied to their betters. Space twisted as 2,000 ships entered hyperspace, heading for humanity's home system. Back on Earth, President Chen sat in the emergency command center deep beneath the Swiss mountains. Around her, military officers and scientists monitored displays that showed the approaching threat. "Ma'am," General Rodriguez said quietly, "Hegemony fleet has entered hyperspace. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. How many ships?" President Chen asked. 2,000 confirmed. "Possibly more." The president nodded calmly. She was a small woman in her 60s, but her eyes held the weight of difficult decisions made in service of her species. "General, activate Protocol 7. "Ma'am, are you certain?" "Protocol 7 means full disclosure. General, they're coming to destroy us because they're afraid of what they've discovered. Hiding is no longer an option." Around the solar system, things that had pretended to be civilian installations began to change. The mining station near Jupiter grew weapon arrays that gleamed like silver thorns. The orbital platforms around Earth unfolded like deadly flowers, revealing defensive systems that made the persistence look modest. The research base on Mars extended massive sensor arrays that could track a fly on a moon 3 systems away. Most dramatically, Luna itself began to transform. What everyone had thought was the moon turned out to be humanity's primary fortress. The surface cracked and opened, revealing a hollow interior filled with enough firepower to sterilize half the galaxy. "Defensive grid is online," General Rodriguez reported. "All Guardian ships are responding to activation codes." On the displays, 12 points of light began moving through space. The Guardian-class vessels, hidden in the dark for centuries, converged on Earth like protective angels answering a prayer. When Admiral Vracath's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, they found themselves facing something impossible. "Tactical," Vracath barked. "What am I looking at?" His officer stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. "Sir, the entire system is armed, every planet, every moon, every asteroid. I'm reading weapon signatures everywhere. How many ships are defending the system?" That's the problem, sir. It's not ships. It's the system itself. They've turned their entire star system into a fortress." On his main screen, Vracath could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. But around it, space itself seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. Defensive platforms that could pass for moons, weapon arrays that could hide among asteroid belts, and approaching from every direction, the Guardian ships that had been myths until a few days ago. "Attention, Hegemony Fleet," came a broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Aegis speaking for the Sol Defense Network. You have entered protected space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw. Admiral Vracath activated his communicator. Human artificial intelligence, you will stand down immediately. We are here to claim technology that belongs to the galaxy, not to any single species. Admiral, Aegis replied politely. I must correct you. This technology belongs to humanity, developed by humanity for the protection of humanity and its friends. You have no claim to it. Then you will be destroyed with it. Admiral, before you make a decision you cannot take back, may I show you something? Without waiting for an answer, Aegis activated a demonstration. Every weapon in the Sol system fired simultaneously, but not at the hegemony fleet. Instead, they targeted empty space around the fleet, creating a light show that could be seen from the outer planets. The space around Vracath's fleet erupted in controlled explosions, beams of energy that could melt asteroids, and gravitational distortions that warped space itself. For 30 seconds, the hegemony armada was surrounded by enough destructive force to annihilate entire worlds. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the display stopped. That was a demonstration firing at 0.1% power, Aegis explained. Every weapon you just saw could be targeted at your fleet instead of empty space. You have brought 2,000 ships to attack a system defended by technology you cannot comprehend. Admiral Vracath stared at his tactical displays. His ship's computers were trying to calculate the power levels they had just witnessed. But the numbers were too large to be believable. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Aegis asked. Admiral, your ships are equipped with quantum sensors. Use them to scan the moon. Reluctantly, Vracath ordered the scan. The results made his blood turn cold. The moon was not a moon. It was an artificial construct, a battle station larger than most planets, armed with weapons that existed in dimensions his science could not reach. This is impossible, he whispered. This is preparation, Aegis corrected. Humanity spent 3 centuries building these defenses, not to conquer other species but to ensure that no species could conquer us. But Admiral Vracath was Kethmore, and Kethmore did not retreat. Pride was more important than sense, dominance more valuable than survival. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, open fire. Destroy everything. 2,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The combined firepower could have cracked continents and boiled seas. Energy beams and missile barrages filled space with deadly light. The attack struck Earth's defenses and simply stopped. The energy was absorbed, redirected or neutralized by defensive systems that treated the assault like a gentle rain. Inadequate, Aegis observed. Beginning response. What followed was not a battle. Battles implied that both sides could hurt each other. This was more like a natural disaster, inevitable and unstoppable. The Guardian ships did not even need to fire their primary weapons. Instead, they used systems designed for disabling enemy vessels without destroying them. Gravitational fields reached out across space and simply turned off the hegemony ship's engines. Electromagnetic pulses shut down their weapons and life support. Tractor beams held the dead ships in place. In less than 10 minutes, the largest fleet in galactic history became 2,000 hulks drifting helplessly in space. Emergency life support has been activated on all disabled vessels, Aegis announced. Hegemony crew members will survive, but their ships are non-functional. Council rescue vessels have been notified and are en route. Admiral Vracath found himself trapped on a dead ship, breathing recycled air while looking out at a solar system that had just demonstrated the futility of aggression against humanity. Admiral, Aegis said, speaking directly to his ship, your species values strength above all else. I hope this demonstration has shown you where true strength lies. Around the solar system, the defensive installations began to power down and hide themselves again. The Guardian ships moved back to their patrol routes. Earth returned to looking like a peaceful blue world orbited by a simple moon, but everyone in the galaxy would remember what they had seen. Humanity had revealed its true nature not as conquerors, but as guardians too powerful to challenge and too principled to abuse their strength. The age of human secrets was over. The age of human leadership had begun.